Welcome to the Expert Network Team podcast,
where our goal is to inform and educate our listeners on matters related to finance, legal, insurance, accounting, and other interests that are of personal and business nature.
We hope you will find our content useful as well as entertaining. The Expert Network Team consists of Carl Frank of A&I Financial, Mike Miller of Miller & Associates CPAs, Jeff Cromendike of Security First Insurance Agency, and I'm Nathan Merrill. I'm an attorney at Goodspeed & Merrill.
Together, our independent team combines our expertise to provide you insights and solutions, some straightforward, some profound, for real-life opportunities we see on a daily basis. We hope you enjoy the information contained in today's podcast and find it useful. If you'd like to learn more or desire to meet with any of the Expert Network team members in person, you can contact us at info@expertnetworkteam.com. That's info@expertnetworkteam.com.
And we encourage you to take advantage of a free consultation with any of our team members. Just mention this podcast when you schedule your appointment.
Now on to today's podcast.
Welcome to today's podcast. I'm Carl Frank, and with me today I've got Nathan Merrill with Goodspeed Merrill. Hello, Nate.
Good afternoon.
And
Glad
Jeff
to be here.
Cromendike with One Digital Insurance. How are you, Jeff?
Good, Carl. Nate, good to see you. Thanks for having me. It's good to be back. The band is back.
The band is back.
It is great to have all of us here.
In our last episode, we had Jeff join in, and I honestly didn't know how to introduce him. But One Digital, official.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, and that's a podcast to come. Talk to all you business owners out there who hope to maybe sell or succeed your business. That happened to us in real time here a couple of months ago. And so, be honest with you, I'm not really sure who I am right now. That's part of the process. And until I go through all the stages of this fully, we won't really be able to share with everybody on a podcast. But I'm kind of trying to figure out which way is up. But right now, we are in the co-branding phase. We were Security First Insurance Agency. We are now moving towards One Digital, which is a more national firm, which involves employee benefits and HR services and all kinds of different stuff. So we have merged, and it's official, and we're figuring it out one day at a time.
Well, congratulations. I just wanted to acknowledge that for all those longtime listeners who were scratching their heads saying, wait a minute, did they replace the other Jeff?
Yes, well, Jeff replaced his company.
Maybe you should. We'll see.
There's a huge story there. We're really excited for you. Can't wait for you to share it with our listeners. Today is not unrelated to that. Maybe it's less of a problem for you since you're not the sole owner. You're now a shareholder of your big company, your national company. But for those of us who are running small businesses or owners of our companies, and we're struggling with a demographic problem. We've got a large number of people, the boomers, who are exiting the workforce, and we've got a large number of people who are ready, possibly, maybe, to work this next generation of 30-somethings and younger.
Gen Y or the
Z.
You usually say millennial like
it's a
bad word.
They're coming back, right? The next generation behind us, and there's a large number of them. But we're the center of the hourglass, the men and women in the middle, this Generation X, who are now at our productive years running these businesses.
And if you look at the graph, the population graphs, for those who are interested in this sort of data-driven kind of analytics, and I think this is generally understood and generally known that Gen X is the small generation.
Yes.
There was the boomers, and they're appropriately named the boomers. X, or Generation Me, I think is what we were often called. But we are the small generation, and what our parents or the boomers didn't think about was exactly how you have 30% less people do the same work as 100% of the people. So as this transition occurs,
oh my gosh,
we have a contracting number of people in the workforce, And that's presenting some challenges, I think, to business owners.
It's a huge challenge. And I know the three of us just happen to be in this generation, and we all happen to be in a position where we are taking care of the older generation as well as trying to bring up the new generation. And so we thought we'd get together, brainstorm, share some ideas about what's working in our companies and what we see working with some of our client business owner companies, and have a fruitful conversation.
Excellent. Well, I've only got one idea and one idea only, so you had a list. Why don't we start with someone who has a multiplicity of...
All right. Well, we are definitely in that generation gap. So in the investment industry, the vast majority of people in my industry are nearing retirement. I think the average age is right around 60. Like, that's the average. So there are not nearly enough young people coming into financial planning, not nearly enough young people getting their certified financial planning designation, coming into the career to replace the generation that's leaving. And so it's a wonderful position to be in, because now we've got people retiring who need people our age to be taking it over, but there's almost too much work to be done. So now we have to train up this next group of people to be professionals, to learn how to treat people the way they deserve to be treated, and take what they've got academic-wise and turn it into practical skills that will translate.
So what are the challenges you face in that?
One, finding people. So we've had positions open. This is the middle of the calendar year, and we've had positions open since the beginning of the year that we have not filled. We just haven't had enough applicants for some of these positions. And that's really a big challenge. The second part of that is when we get them in, we had to change our expectations. So expectations before were to have experience, and now we're saying, okay, experience not required. We're going to bring you right out of college or right out of your CFP coursework, right out of your career-changing position. And then, of course, we have to spend more time. So we have to do a lot more training for these people and just dedicate ourselves more than we had in the past to people we're bringing into this situation. We need to be ready to hold their hand.
So I got two questions for you, and Jeff, you can speak to this in terms of your angle as well. If you're hiring people without training or experience, what are you looking for, first and foremost? And then after you make that significant investment of time and money to train them up, how do you make sure they now don't leverage that to your next best offer for $10,000, $15,000 more a year?
Oh, great question. And Jeff, I'm sure you have great ideas. I'll just jump in real quick. So the first thing is we make them take a standardized test. So we have switched over the years. The one we're using now happens to be called Colby. They should sponsor our podcast just because of the plug. But yeah, so we use a standardized test, and then we have created a standardized position fit. And so we interview and bring into people on multiple interviews, people that fit a little bit better. So that's the first thing that made it a little easier. But the second thing is really enthusiasm and willingness to work that we can just sense with these people that would be a good cultural fit. And then throw them right into the position. So those two things are, the subjective as well as the objective ways that we bring somebody in. I'll just throw in a 2.5 idea. The half idea is, we've only had a 50% success rate. So we have had half the people not work out, and that's always been good. It's never been bad when somebody doesn't work out. It's always been good to help that person go a different way. And sometimes it's hurt because at the time we didn't recognize, but in retrospect, we will always look back and said, great, wonderful for that person, so glad we've gone this direction, they went that direction, and, c'est la vie, life is good. Jeff?
Yeah, well, thanks. That's a great question, actually, and I think regardless of experience or not, I think we need to be asking this question and really sticking to really our guns with regards to the correct fit, whether they've got experience or not. This is a situation where, we really need to always continue to focus on hiring to culture. And I would say that's really kind of my answer to both questions, whether I'm hiring somebody with experience or hiring somebody without experience. Certainly we want to make sure, first of all, that they're competent. So there's, clearly some things that they just need to know if they're going to be in this environment. And those are, some, Word, Excel, PowerPoint, a lot of different programs and things like that we focus on, writing skills, and there's some ways to test to that. So as long as we're assuming pretty much everybody's competent when they're applying and coming into the door, then we really focus primarily on, on culture, which, really is defined by our core values. We really try to focus and try to get a beat on whether they understand and can get behind our vision as well as our mission. And I'll tell you what, I don't know, I just feel like that's like almost 90% of it. If we've got the right fit culturally, this person's going to get along well and play nicely in the sandbox, make good connection with our people, collaborate. I've just really not, very rarely have had a bad experience once those boxes are checked. We too are in an industry where we would love to have experience. We'd love to have somebody come in that's licensed already. But to Carl's point, I think the reality is those people are fewer and fewer between.
Numerically, they just don't exist presently.
Yeah, it's a real challenging situation to be in, Jeff. I sympathize with you. That's definitely where we're at.
And I'll just say from the perspective, when we have automatic credentialing that is kind of a threshold for at least our professional side of workforce. We typically would not hire someone to see them through the law school process. It's a little bit different than the licensing you guys go through, but I don't want to say it's so unique. But so obviously we have credentialing issues like, did you pass the bar, and are you licensed to practice law, or can you get licensed to practice law in our state? But I'll echo what Jeff was saying in the sense of culture, and I think we talked about this in some other contexts within previous podcasts, but one of the things I really try to help in evaluating their culture fit with us is, are they someone that's going to identify and develop an identity around what we're trying to accomplish as a firm? Because so much of our modern culture is sans identity. Like, people are seeking for their identity in so many different ways. Social media is probably the worst possible avenue that some people seek for validation and identity. It used to be things like church and the Rotary Club and various organizations, the bowling league that they belong to, those sorts of things were how they developed and identified themselves. And so much anymore, it's become work. And work is almost the only organization that a fair amount of people belong to or are active in. And so we want to make sure that their identity or that they can fit into that. Because if that's what it's going to be, we want it to be a positive fit and something that can help sustain them through the growing process and the life.
I love that. And what I'm finding is I'm bringing on these new people, and we brought in 3 of them who are under the age of 30 recently, and I would almost count it 4 because one is very close to that age. In any event, they want to fit in. They want to be part of a culture. They want to be part of something that's exciting to them. They want to have a mission and a values, and they want to have things that align with themselves. And this is part of, painting with broad strokes this generation's great strength, and also, a challenge to be a manager of this generation is that their values speak more than money. And so you had mentioned something a little bit ago. How do you avoid letting them bounce to the next company who pays a little bit more? We lost one that way, and we haven't lost the others, knock on wood. But also I've learned from a great business owner who I trust very dearly. He said, well, great, let them go. That's wonderful. Because you don't want a coin-operated employee. You don't want somebody who's only interested in the money.
They're going to leave eventually.
They're not in alignment with your values.
Right.
This is not who you are as a firm. So that's good to let them go. That's not who you are. And the other things I'm learning about these folks is, as much as they're, just really, I don't want to say good-hearted but that's what they are, right, is that they need a lot of praise, and they need it quickly, and they get it quickly from their iPhones, they get it quickly from their social media, they get the positive response really quickly, and so it's a completely different way that I'm trying to manage them, which is not the annual review or a quarterly review. I'm meeting with these new employees every day, even if it's briefly, and it's a pat on the back, and it's a, hey, what do you need help with? And
I thought you were going to tell me you walk around putting thumbs up
and gold stars
emojis on there.
Oh yeah, it should be an emoji. I should be sending them texts, or I should get an Instagram account or a Snapchat account. Yes, I had thought about that.
Oh, the pain of it all. So I'm going to take us to, I think the logical precursor to this question is, okay, great. We've identified kind of the qualities of the people we want to hire. We say we've mastered the ability to keep them. How do we find them? Where are you finding people effectively?
Well, we found ours because the traditional now is in the past 5 years. Past 5 years, we've been finding people on the internet. These various search engine website places for jobs.
Not to validate any particular one, but we're all aware of
right. LinkedIn would top the list, right? Because we're all networking via LinkedIn. But yeah, there are a lot of them out there for jobs, and I don't know that anyone did any good for us. To be honest,
ZipRecruiter and stuff like that, or are you just talking about?
Okay, so those didn't work. So what we did instead was we went right to the professors at the local universities, and we called them up directly, and they were so excited to help. And all of a sudden, as soon as we did that, and the professor announced once in class to one of his classes, hey, this is an opportunity, boom, the class just flooded the gates. And it might have been timing because it was near the end of the semester, and everybody's like, oh my gosh, what do I get for us? Summer's coming up, and I don't have a job yet, or I'm graduating, I don't know what I'm going to do. But it worked, and we got inundated from just a couple of professors from a couple of the local universities. So we had to go outside the box because this website way wasn't working.
Internships. Do either of you do internships?
We do. We have 2.
We have not done that. Love to. I'm a big fan of them, but we haven't done that. But I think it's great.
Yeah, we've done some clerkships, and one of our stellar partners at our firm we hired as a clerk 10 years ago. So
right, and it turned into an awesome employee. I mean, that's our hope, right? That's why we do it. So at our firm, an intern is part of a club. We call them and this is one of the things I learned too, is that this young generation, because we're old, right? The average age in my office is way over the age of 50 probably, but I'm not going to deal with the math of the average because we got the young people in there to bring down our average.
You bring the average down.
Yes, we all do. Thanks. Yeah, not by much, Nate. You and I are the same age. We're right there, my friend. Counting the days. And so I forgot what I was saying. Oh, right. So we call it the GSD Club. So the interns are part of the GSD Club, Get Stuff Done Club.
Oh, I like that.
Isn't that cool? Because it's fun. So we had one intern in years past, and they got bored, and they got miserable because they're super young, they got nobody else their age, they don't know what they're doing, and they got nobody to talk to about it. So we brought in more than one. So those are my 2 ideas. And then the club, you see, now there's 2 or 3 of them, right? Mm-hmm. Maybe even 4. And so now we all meet, and we meet every day, and we find out what we're doing, we find out how we can help each other, and then they become friends. And so even if the interns don't stay, even if they, and I'll let you know how this works, but I think it's worked, so far it's working great. There's a lot of energy, and they still got to get stuff done. Like there's still a certain amount of grunt work that you give to the intern that, you're given to the intern for a reason, right? They got to earn their stripes. But at least now they got somebody to share the pain with.
And you're creating that community and that identity, right?
Yeah, and it's fun. And it's kind of energizing the office, too, because we got a little more blood in the office. With COVID, everybody's hybrid. There's not a lot of people here,
So do you have a beanbag section with munchies and video games?
That sounds right. Okay. Maybe that's what I need to do now.
So let me ask this question or throw this out there. Are you limiting your hiring net to geography? Or are you exploring the possibility of expanding your searches beyond your office demographics?
Yeah, for us it is limited, and that really stinks. We've definitely lost people because of it. But Jeff, now that you're national, I bet you have a more interesting answer.
Yeah, I'd like to think so, but probably not. And that might be like I might be the main problem with that. I may be the one that's just having a hard time getting over it. But the reality is we are in a different world. Culture, as you know, has been so incredibly important to us. And we felt like the only way to build culture was to have people here, to have people interacting, rubbing shoulders and connecting in person. And if there's anything that COVID taught us was that, certainly it's more difficult to build culture remote, but it can be done. And it's not necessarily the end all. If we do have an opportunity to hire great talent outside of the geographic location where we used to draw from, simply because they now aren't going to be coming in on a daily basis, or maybe even 2 or 3 times a week. So, just a quick story. We just hired a personal lines account manager after it's been about probably a 10-week process of very few resumes coming in, very few opportunities to pick from. And this particular person told us what they were going to do. And so as you think about the real estate market being a buyer's market or a seller's market, obviously it's a seller's market right now. Well, it is an employee market. These people are telling us, if you want me to come work for you, this is what I will do or what I won't do. And so we just hired our first person who basically said, I am not coming into the office. I work from home. If you want me, that's the way it's going to have to be. And we did it. And so,
did you prod them on that to understand their rationale? I mean, how deeply did you explore reasoning behind that?
We did actually. We didn't come to an agreement till actually the third interview, when we really understood kind of why and how committed this person was to continuing to be a part of our culture and a part of our business, even though this person was going to work remote. This person did finally agree to come in for a 3-month training period, but that was off the table when we first initially met with this person. And so now we've compromised. This person is going to come in for training, so we feel good about that. But ultimately, after that 3-month, probation time, we can expect this person to be working from home, and we just have to be open to that. And so this person's located up by where you live, Nate, so they didn't want to commute
I don't blame
to
them.
the south part of town. But that person could just as much be on the East Coast, provided there aren't too many time change issues in doing business. But we're open to it now. We feel like we have to be if we're going to attract talent. And geographically, I'm opening my mind.
I want to emphasize something you just said. I think you were saying it in inverse, saying whether they're in Westminster, Colorado, or on the East Coast, it kind of doesn't matter to you at this point. But the same is true in terms of competition for talent, and I think we need to be aware of that, is those East Coast firms that can pay 20% more may sooner or later be competing for the same talent as we are here in Denver. So we have to be very attuned to that and recognize that we're not just competing against local firms for talent, but we're going to see, and I mean, as a partner, I get recruiting emails daily, weekly that are saying, hey, we got a new AmLaw firm coming into town. They're looking for partners. You interested? You don't have to go to the office. And it's got me aware of, like, if I'm trying to attract seasoned talent, these are the things that are out there. And on that note, seasoned talent, because something you said as part of that interview process, this is a question I've added to my interviewing. When they actually let me interview someone at our firm, I've added in the question for seasoned professionals. I don't ask this for the millennials, you'll see, for obvious reasons, but I say, how do we make this firm the last firm you are, how do we make this the last firm you're at? What does this firm have to do for you? And have them, to the point you were expressing about the person who came to you and said, this is my deal, this is what I'll do. I want to know what they want out of a firm and whether we can meet that, match that, or where we need to be headed as a firm in order to meet or match people's expectations so they don't feel kind of an embedded or implied need to move on to get their next fix, as it were.
That's such great advice. I love that. That's a daring question to ask, and you're really putting a lot of power on the person who's being interviewed. They probably feel a whole lot of respect from you. It really differentiates you.
Yeah, that is good. And I'd like to use that as a little bit of a segue as we maybe close this particular session out. I know we've talked a lot about attracting talent, but how do we keep talent? Like, how do we keep who we have? Because, clearly that's the least expensive route to this, unless we're scaling, right? I know you guys are growing. We hope to grow. We're going to have more bodies, more head count, but how do we keep who we have? Because that's another extremely difficult situation that we're all in right now. Our people get calls constantly, I just keep thinking about what do we need to do as business owners, as leaders, to actually keep who we have. And it comes back to the question you just asked, Nate, on the front end of an interview or on an interview, someone coming into the organization is, what are you looking for? What do you need? What can we do for you to make this your final stop? I just would throw it out. I was reading a piece here the other day that talked about stay interview questions, meaning, hey, here's an example of one of those questions, which is, what do you dread most about your everyday work position? Or when is the last time you thought about leaving? What situations make you think about leaving? These are stay interview type questions. And I think as important as the information of knowing that, what that candidate for a new position is looking for, I think it's really important we ask that same question to our existing staff members. Like, how are things going? What are you thinking? I've got a long list of questions here. I can send them over, but what would tempt you to leave our company? These are questions that really kind of make me cringe when I think about asking them. But boy, I would rather know the answer to that before they leave.
And we always, we always think it's compensation, right? Well, they just went for the extra buck, but it's not always. Right. I think something we used to learn in Crank said is 70% of people leave their jobs because of their manager or something like that, because they don't feel that they're being fully utilized or something to that effect. But that is exactly why, because when we go back to talking about community and culture and fitting in and feeling validated, you were talking about that earlier. These are all things that, like, I already feel like I fit into a community, and work, even though my name's on the letterhead, is not my primary community. And so I really have to extend myself to help that community develop within the firm, because my ideal place is isolated miles away from the next human being, and that's where I feel most energized and empowered. But I'm odd that way.
Well, you're an introvert.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, that's a powerful person to be.
But it's
and knowing who you are is a big part of what makes us love you, man.
But that's where developing a community can be a challenge, because I'm not a millennial either. I have no idea. I mean, you've done very good in this. Get it? What is it?
Get stuff done.
GSD Club. Kind of tapping into their mindset, their mentality.
Yeah.
And I speak to them as though they're like an alien creature, but in some respects, culturally, they kind of are to us. And so we have to be cognizant that what drove us to be in the position we are may not be the same drivers. We can't assume that they are driven or motivated by the same things.
It's so true. They're clearly not. Yeah, we sometimes joke, the older generations, that they've been coddled. Right, but that's not exactly.
Whether they have or they haven't, it still doesn't get to the heart of what drives them.
That's right. If we have that perspective, it's just not going to help us manage them. So we got to flip our perspective, and they certainly don't view it that way. Maybe some of them do, but they definitely thrive from instant positive gratification and a lot of frequency. So it's a totally different type of review. And Jeff, your stay questions are awesome. And these young people might not have any clue what any of those ideas are, or they might have these crazy ideas about what they need. But just by asking them is putting them in a position where they're going to feel heard and respected and be part of the community. And I think that's going to help build the loyalty.
And I'll give one closing thought on at least observations of millennials is notwithstanding their training, their education, and in some case their tremendous amount of extracurriculars they've engaged in over the years, they are unsure of the future. They're unsure of their future. They're unsure of the future. So anybody who can give them some degree of security or vision, I think they gravitate to those people. And that's, I think, true leadership. And maybe that's been intergenerational for many generations, is the people who can provide some semblance of security and vision and direction, whether compensation is better somewhere else. If they don't feel that same level of security and confidence in the direction they're headed, they may or may not go for the extra money. I mean, so we can provide those kinds of intangibles in terms of our own leadership, whether we connect with them at a GSD level or not.
Yeah, and if nothing else, let's give it a shot, right? Let's try and provide that, and if it doesn't work, we'll change course.
Yeah, absolutely. A couple closing thoughts on that. There's some stuff that I've been reading around that kind of thing is we're going to have flexible work environments. It's just, this is the new world we're in. And I'm not just talking about maybe work from home, but, just even, the flexibility to work when they want to work during the day and how they want to work. I mean, it's just, there's a lot of things there that we definitely need to take into consideration.
Not just the where, the how.
Yeah, I really do. I think we need to, just think outside the box as employers there with regards to that. But the other thing is just offer resources that, maybe don't cost a bunch of money, but really bring value to being here. And Nate, you touched on it. I think, these are resources that you wouldn't think an employer should or would offer, but because they do, it's why I stay here. And, May is Mental Health Awareness Month, for example. And one of the things that I've really enjoyed about this new company that we merged with is just the amount of resources they have available to really employee health, specifically around mental health. And, we have gym memberships available to us. So physical health. I mean, this stuff isn't, rocket science. It's not going to cost us or break the bank either. I think we can really bring a bunch of value where in areas where people used to maybe go to their churches or their community centers or other resources to get these types of things, we can be that for them. So be thinking a little bit outside of the box there. Just 4 more quick points as leaders and in retaining our staff. Be aware of how we show up every day and what our impact is. Definitely check ourselves. Be sure that we're life givers, not life takers. Give our employees and our staff respect and attention. We need to listen to them. We need to hear them. Third, focus on potential and possibility. And when I think about that, I think about the importance of a clear vision. Where are we going? Imagine if we get to this place, what will it be like if we achieve this? People want to know where they're going, where the company's going, and they want to be inspired. And then finally, one that's just really hard. I had a really, really tough resignation a week ago today. Somebody who's been with us for 10 years, really a great asset to our team, decided to go in a completely different direction. And it was as hard for her to tell us that she was leaving as it was for me to basically do what this final thing is, which is to make it okay to leave. People are watching. And as hard as that is for me to say, I sat here across the table from her and said, you know what, thank you for your service. And I understand. And I hold you with an open hand. And I want to know what we can do to support you. and let's finish strong together. And so, it's interesting. That's kind of rippled through our organization now. And I don't think it's given anybody permission to leave, but it's certainly spoken to who we are and how we care for our people. So just a couple of thoughts, on retaining our people and, certainly attracting great talent. But this was a good discussion. I appreciate it.
Great conversation. Great closing thoughts. Thanks, Jeff.
Thank you. Yeah.
Well, Nate, Jeff, another great podcast. And this was a big one, but it was a great topic, and it comes from the heart. Everybody who is listening, create another beautiful day.
Make it a good one.
Thank you for joining us today. Hope you enjoyed the information we shared.
If you enjoyed this podcast, please feel free to share it with someone else and join us next time.
If you want to meet with a member of the team, please contact us at info@expertnetworkteam.com. That's info@expertnetworkteam.com.
If you have special topics you'd like to hear about, please reach out to us and let us know at the same email address. Again, that's info@expertnetworkteam.com. Thank you for joining us and have a great day. Thank you for listening to this podcast. We want to remind you that listening to this podcast does not establish a client-professional relationship with any of the firms represented, nor does it constitute legal, investment, or accounting advice, and the views are those of the professionals only.
Investment advisory services may be provided through A&I Financial Services, and securities may be provided through Genios Wealth Management.